Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a brand new story lined up for you, so let's dive right into it. My name is Mark, and I never imagined I'd be sharing a story like this. When you get married, you believe in the idea of love, but what I discovered was far from that. My wife was secretly betraying me, and when I confronted her, instead of remorse, she tried to tear me apart. Anna and I had been married for several years. She was absolutely stunning, and I fell for her charm right away. Our marriage seemed perfect to others. At least that's how it appeared on the outside. And most importantly, we had a beautiful daughter who meant everything to both of us. Sure, we had our disagreements, but nothing out of the ordinary, I thought. I ignored all the warning signs she showed me. As the years passed, I kept brushing them aside because I didn't want to face the truth. Anna never really valued my opinions. Even early on in our marriage, she would dismiss whatever I said, interrupting me during conversations, making it clear my words didn't matter. It was disrespectful, but I chose to overlook it. Then came the secrecy. Her phone, which she once left lying around carelessly, suddenly became her most prized possession. She never let it out of her sight, turning the screen away from me, taking calls in private, and when I asked who it was, she'd simply say, "Just a friend." The more I tried to connect with her, the more distant she became. She started going out more, staying out late, and sometimes not coming home at all. Her excuses were weak, and nothing seemed to add up. I grew up in a single-parent household, and if there was one thing I swore I would never let happen, it was for my daughter to grow up in a broken home. I didn't want her to wake up one day and realize her parents couldn't stand each other. So I held back, hoping things would get better, even though deep down, I knew they wouldn't. But things did not get better. In fact, they got worse. I began to realize just how much she disregarded me, like I was just another piece of furniture in the house. No matter what I did, it felt like I was losing her. One night, she left her phone on the couch while she ran into the bedroom to grab something. The phone was locked, but for a split second, a message appeared on the screen before disappearing. It was a flirty text from an unsaved number. I didn't get the chance to check for more details, but in that instant, my gut told me everything I needed to know. I had to know the truth about what my wife was up to, but I couldn't spend all my time tailing her around. I had my work, and at the same time, I couldn't ignore that feeling in my gut telling me there was more to that message I briefly saw. So, I made a decision. I hired a private investigator. A friend of mine had used one before, and he assured me they could find things that the average person would miss. If Anna was betraying me, I needed more than just suspicion. I needed undeniable proof. Something concrete that couldn't be twisted or explained away. The investigator didn't waste any time. He documented where Anna went, who she met, and how long she stayed at each place. He wasn't just tracking random events. He was identifying patterns, uncovering her secret life. He took photos, recorded videos, and made notes of every suspicious detail. While he worked behind the scenes, I had to act like nothing was wrong. Every night, I lay next to Anna, knowing that she might have just returned from another man's embrace. The waiting was unbearable. Then, one evening, I met with the investigator. He handed me a folder, and when I opened it, I knew my life would never be the same. Anna wasn't just cheating. She was involved with multiple men who had some serious influence in society. It was like she was living a double life, a life I never saw. Some of them were married, and yet Anna had gotten involved with them, meeting in hotels, private residences, and places no married woman should ever be. The videos were even worse. Intimate moments in cars, dimly lit lounges, and hotel lobbies. My mind was racing with questions. What did she get out of this? Money? Power? A twisted thrill? I worked so hard to provide for our family, to make sure we had everything we needed, yet it wasn't enough for her. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved and trusted, no longer existed. That night, I sat in the living room, waiting for Anna to come home. My heart was pounding from the shock of what I had just discovered. I had undeniable proof of her betrayal, and now I needed to hear her admit it. I wasn't expecting a happy resolution, but at the very least, I hoped she'd have the decency to own up to what she had done. When she walked in, I stood up and faced her, my voice calm but unwavering. "Anna, we need to talk." Her eyes flickered in surprise. I told her that I knew everything about her secret life, that it wasn't a secret anymore. For a brief moment, she froze, but instead of offering an explanation, she did something I never expected. Instead of feeling remorse, she laughed, and before I could speak, she completely flipped the situation. Her voice grew loud with anger as she shouted, "You've been controlling me for years. You don't let me live my life. You track my every move. You don't trust me, and now you're accusing me of something terrible?" I was stunned. This wasn't a defense. It was an all-out counterattack. Before I could even react, she stormed into the kitchen, yanked open a drawer, and grabbed a knife. With one swift motion, she cut her own arm. I stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was unfolding in front of me. She screamed in pain and collapsed to the floor, clutching her arm as though I had attacked her. My mind was racing, struggling to make sense of the situation. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face, but the terror in her eyes wasn't genuine, yet it was convincing enough to manipulate anyone who didn't know better. Then, without a moment's hesitation, she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. "Help! My husband just attacked me. He's out of control. I think he's going to kill me," she cried, her voice trembling with feigned desperation. I backed away slowly, my hands in the air, heart pounding in disbelief. This was a nightmare, a trap, a cruel setup. As I stood there trying to process the madness, I began recording everything discreetly on my phone. Claire noticed the screen light up and immediately demanded to know who I was texting. I didn't respond. Her expression hardened, and she fixed me with a cold, menacing stare. In a low, chilling voice, she uttered, "Nothing can save you now. I will make sure you suffer until the end of your days." A shiver ran down my spine. A few minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air as flashing red and blue lights illuminated the front of the house. The police burst in, guns drawn, commanding me to put my hands where they could see them. Claire was sobbing in a corner, her body trembling as she pointed at me. "He snapped," she whimpered. "I just wanted to go out with my friends, and he completely lost it." I tried to speak up, but what could I say? A man defending himself against a crying, injured woman? It didn't matter that I had never hurt her. It didn't matter that I had proof of her betrayal. In that moment, I was the villain. The officers grabbed me, cuffed me, and before I knew it, I was being shoved into the back of a police car. As I sat handcuffed to a bench at the station, everything began to sink in. This had all been a well-planned move. Her affair, the accusations, the self-inflicted injuries. It was all a calculated scheme, and she wasn't finished yet. I couldn't expose her immediately. I knew if I did, she would end up in jail for what she had done. But it was late, and I couldn't get in touch with my lawyer. They kept me in the station overnight. The next day, I sat in a cold, sterile interrogation room, waiting to be questioned again. Then, my lawyer walked in, holding a stack of papers, divorce papers. Claire had wasted no time. She wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation. She wanted it all. The house, the assets, and worst of all, full custody of our child. It was happening so fast. Just the evening before, I had confronted her about her infidelity. Now, my entire life was crumbling before me. She was trying to turn everyone against me, and for the first time, I realized I had to fight back or lose everything. For years, I had ignored the truth, holding back because I didn't want to destroy her life. But she had taken it too far. She wanted war, and I was ready to give it to her. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the SD card, the one holding everything the private investigator had gathered. Videos, photos, undeniable proof. I also had the recording from the night before, when she staged the whole scene, screaming and claiming I attacked her. I had recorded everything. Her voice was crystal clear as she threatened me. "I'll make sure you suffer until you die. You'll lose everything, and no one will believe you." Those words were meant to destroy me. Now, they would be the very thing that brought her down. I slid everything over over to my lawyer. If Claire thought she could twist the system against me, she was about to learn what real consequences looked like. The fallout was swift. As soon as law enforcement reviewed the evidence, her entire story fell apart. The same officers who had arrived at the house with suspicion now saw her for what she truly was, a manipulative fraud who had wasted their time with a false report. And the best part, the powerful men she had been involved with, the ones who thought they were untouchable, were now in a panic. If this got out, their lives would be ruined too. Claire wasn't just losing the divorce, she was about to lose everything. I can't even describe the relief I felt when the police officially cleared me of all charges. When the truth finally came out, it was Claire who had to face the consequences of her actions. My lawyer sat me down and gave me an option I hadn't even considered. I could sue her for everything she had put me through. At first, I hesitated, but then I thought about how she had lied to the police, tried to ruin my life, and turned everyone I knew against me. It was time for her to pay. She didn't just betray me, she tried to destroy my life. That's when I knew she had to face the full consequences of her actions. With the evidence I had, filing a case against her was the next step. But before I could do anything, Claire was arrested for filing a false police report and obstruction of justice. The legal system she had tried to manipulate against me now turned on her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I didn't need to lift a finger. This was her karma playing out. As soon as Claire's name was dragged into a legal scandal, all the men she had been seeing cut ties with her. None of them wanted to be associated with someone facing criminal charges. She thought she had options, but in truth, she was nothing more than a disposable secret to them. Then came the divorce. Claire thought she could walk away with everything, my house, savings, and even my business assets. She imagined she could destroy me financially and start over with a comfortable payout, but the court saw her for who she really was. Not only did she lose the case, but she was also ordered to pay damages and cover the legal fees for the chaos she caused. Instead of walking away rich, she ended up with nothing but debt. But the biggest blow, custody of our child. Claire fought for full custody, painting me as a dangerous, unfit parent. But her lies had already been exposed, and the judge saw through every one of them. In the end, I was granted full custody, while she was awarded only limited, supervised visitation. The woman who thought she could take my child from me was now the one told when and where she could see them, if at all. Then reality hit her. She went to jail. It wasn't a long sentence, but it was long enough for her to realize the true consequences of her actions. When she finally got out, she didn't have the money, support, or connections to rebuild the life she had tried to destroy. She was drowning in legal debt and struggling just to get by. The best part? I didn't have to ruin her. She did it all on her own. It's crazy to think how close I came to losing everything. If I had let my emotions drive me, if I'd reacted out of anger instead of strategy, I could have ended up in jail, broke, and without my child. Staying calm at first felt like the right decision, but looking back, I realized that had I stayed quiet any longer, Claire would have completely buried me. The truth is, some people don't just want to hurt you, they want to destroy you, and if you give them the chance, they will. I know some of you might be thinking, why didn't you leave sooner? The answer is simple. I loved her. I believed in our family, and when you have a child with someone, you don't throw everything away based on suspicion. But love shouldn't blind you, and loyalty should never be one-sided. I learned the hard way that the person you trust most can also be the one plotting to bring you down. That's why it's crucial to pay attention to actions, not just words. If someone keeps disrespecting you, lying to you, or making you feel crazy for questioning them, chances are you're not the problem. At the end of the day, I didn't win because I was lucky. I won because I kept my head down, gathered the right evidence, and played the long game. Claire thought she could manipulate the system, but karma had a different plan. She thought she could take everything from me, but in the end, she lost it all. There's nothing more freeing than knowing that someone who tried to destroy you no longer has any power over your life. So let me ask you, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have fought back the way I did, or handled it differently? Let me know in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, if you believe in justice and standing up for yourself. Make sure to like and share this video. You never know who might need to hear this today.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking real-life stories like this. See you in the next one.